Welcome in to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht. The stories you've heard and the ones you need to hear.
A triumphant return to the White House, and I wonder who that will be.
The American Rescue Plan.
It is packed with pork.
Governor Cuomo.
It's not funny.
I'm not going to resign.
We have a crisis on the border.
Time to open Texas.
Is Neanderthal thinking to have enough vaccine supply by the end of May.
Papal trip to Iraq.
Your life, your values, your voice. This is News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome in. It is Friday. News and Views, Tom Lamprecht. Benny is off. Clark is here. Lots to talk about, as always. Interesting story in the News and Observer. More than 15,000 registered Republicans switched parties since the U.S. Capitol riot on January the 6th. 85% of them becoming politically unaffiliated. 18% of those voters left the party after February the 14th, the day after Donald Trump's second acquittal Senate impeachment trial, I should say. Since then, the party censured Richard Burr for finding Trump guilty. Burr was one of 57 senators, including 7 Republicans, to cast the guilty vote. Now, the News and Observer is pushing the story as if it were a mass exit from the Republican Party by so-called moderate Republicans who were so disgusted with Trump and his supporters that they just couldn't take it anymore, that they were so embarrassed to even be associated with the Republican Party because of Donald Trump. I don't think so. I think the reason why you're seeing, and it would be interesting to go back and survey these 15,000 registered Republicans who have switched their parties, 85% of them to unaffiliated. It would be interesting to find out the reason for doing so. I would tell you, my guess is these are not establishment Republicans that are leaving the party. These are not people that are upset with Donald Trump and his supporters. These are Trump supporters who are upset with the establishment Republicans. These are Trump supporters that are upset with Richard Burr for finding Donald Trump guilty. These are Trump supporters and conservatives on January the 6th. Now, granted, January the 6th was the day of the riot, and this happened since January 6th. But what else happened around January 6th? They affirmed the election. I don't think these were middle of the road, quote, moderate establishment Republicans that are leaving. Now, I have no empirical evidence. This is just Tom Lamprecht's hunch. But I think I'm right. Of course I do. Tom Cotton warned yesterday that Joe Biden's nominee for the Associate Attorney General, Vanita Gupta, would make America less safe. Now, this is really interesting. This is the second in command that is a rather bizarre nomination. Does Joe Biden even know these people? I don't think so. I think Joe Biden is getting recommendations from somebody else. He is the puppet. And whoever is pulling the strings and moving the mouth is telling Joe what to say, who to nominate, what to do. Vanita Gupta. In a series of tweets, Tom Cotton made the case for why she must be stopped. Quote, more than 83,000 Americans died from drug overdoses last year, but Gupta wants to decriminalize possession of all drugs, even fentanyl. Opioids are already ravaging our communities, he said. We shouldn't give fentanyl, heroin, or cocaine dealers a get-out-of-jail-free card. The Arkansas Republican said that as of last summer, she was one of those calling to defund the police. Her allies in the jailbreak industry who are clamoring for access to the Biden DOJ are now trying to deny what she said, but see for yourself. Where Gupta stands on defunding the police, he said, sharing a photo of what she told the Senate Judiciary Committee last summer on use of police force. Quote, while front-end systems changes are important, it is also critical for the state and local leaders to heed calls from Black Lives Matter and Movement for Black Lives Matter activists to decrease police budgets and scope, role, and responsibility of police in our lives, she said in a statement. This is, now remember, so this would be the second in command at the Department of Justice. You talk about the fox being in charge of the hen house. This person wants to decriminalize even fentanyl when it comes to drugs, that whatever you want to sell is fine with her. Now, granted, she cannot make the law, but if nobody is enforcing the law, that basically is the law. So we've got her second in command of the Department of Justice, and then we've got it second in command of the Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Richard Levin, who thinks he is Dr. Rachel Levin. I mean, these nominees are just bizarre. I keep saying this over and over again, but my gosh, the inmates are in charge of the asylum. Question is, who is running the country? I don't think Joe is calling these shots. This is actually a big story. Now, a lot of people are just going to look at this and say, oh, what's the big deal? Kamala Harris talking to she's the vice president of the United States, and she's talking to the head of another nation. Kamala Harris yesterday took the call to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. Where was Joe? We don't know. Yeah. Now, I mean, it would be easy just to bypass this story and say, okay, well, the vice president talked to Netanyahu. Let me ask you, when have you heard of this before? I mean, really, when did Joe? Now, I mean, granted, Joe was over there, trying to get money for his son Hunter with the Chinese, and he was over there trying to get money for Hunter with Burisma, the gas company. But when Joe was vice president, I mean, he wasn't the one that was giving the calls. He certainly wasn't the one that was communicating to Benjamin Netanyahu when he was vice president. Mike Pence, for that matter, his 4 years. I mean, I'm not saying they were never sent or present when heads of state were around. But this guy's only 60 days into his presidency, and already he's handing off, talking to the head of state.
Told you so.
Yeah, he did. Sleepy Joe. He's handing it off to Kamala. This is a big deal, and the guesses and bets keep coming in. How long will Joe last? Whew, not looking too good. Interesting that the big story of the week. Who'd have thought the big story of the week is Dr. Seuss? Again, yeah, it's been there all week. And this is really the first day I've touched it. I thought, well, this is going to go away quick, right? It keeps coming back. Now, what's really interesting is the cancel culture wants to get rid of Dr. Seuss.
Why?
Well, the interesting part of the story is Dr. Seuss's books that they want to get rid of are selling now for as much as $900. You go on eBay, maybe they're on Craigslist, I don't know. But you can go on, and if you want to buy, for example, there's a book called The Cat's Quizzer. One seller had it priced, quote, good hardback copy of The Cat's Quizzer, $900. I need to go check my kids and grandkids' books to see if I've got any of those in there. $900. If I have one, you can have it for $850. So what's interesting though is the cancel culture wants to get rid of all these books, and now they're the hottest commodities right now. Copies of the Dr. Seuss books are flying out of Amazon and Barnes and Noble's warehouses. His works are making up 9 of the top 10 bestsellers on both companies' lists as of Thursday evening. So they want to shut him down. What have they done? They've shot him to the top of the list. is now bestsellers. What was the last time a Dr. Seuss book was on the bestsellers list? By the way, this guy, his estate, when did Dr. Seuss die? I mean, he was born back in, what, the 1910s? And Dr. Seuss is, he died in 91. Is that right, Clark?
Yep, at 87.
87, back in 91. Last year, the Dr. Seuss Enterprises made $33 million on book royalties, movie royalties. But the cancel culture keeps coming back and talking about how he needs to be removed, how he is hurtful to people. Now, what's really interesting about this is just back in 2016, President Obama said of Dr. Seuss, through a prolific collection of stories, he made children see that reading is fun, and in the process, he emphasized respect for all, pushed us to accept ourselves for who we are, challenged preconceived notions, and encouraged trying new things, and by example, taught us that we are limited by nothing but the range of our aspirations and the vibrancy of our imaginations. Now, this is Barack Hussein Obama from 2016. I mean, he was the leader of progressivism at the time. So what has changed in 5 years? The books haven't changed. Dr. Seuss, as you just heard, Dr. Seuss died back in 91. The books are still exactly the same. That didn't change. But the cancel culture is wanting to shut this guy down. Now, first of all, he was a white male, so that goes against him. That's already 2 X's against the guy, 2 strikes. It's interesting, story after story about how Dr. Seuss was being canceled because his works were so hurtful to others. I mean, I bet I looked at 20 stories, and not one of the stories gave any examples of what are you talking about. I kept looking, and I finally found an article from a while back. It was a 2019 study by 2 people I've never heard of, but apparently the cancel culture is now holding them in high esteem. Two authors, Katie Ishizuka and Ramon Stevens. They wrote that they had evidence that the cat is out of the bag promoted Orientalism, anti-blackness, and white supremacy. Okay? So their evidence, here's their evidence out of the report. Notably, every character of color is male. Males of color are only presented in subservient and dehumanized roles. Most startling is the complete invisibility and absence of women and girls of color across Dr. Seuss's entire children's book collection. For instance, in If I Ran the Zoo, a white male character is carried by 3 Asian characters as he holds a gun. Ooh, he holds a gun. Oh, wow, that's hurtful. The caption beneath the Asian males describes them as helpers, and they all wear their eyes in a slant, from countries no one can spell, according to the study. The only 2 characters identified as Africans appear in Horton Hears a Who, sporting grass skirts, wearing no shoes, and they're placed in subservient roles carrying an animal to a white male child's zoo. Folks, this is the condemning evidence against Dr. Seuss. I mean, they're grasping at straws. I mean, first, look, if you ever read a Dr. Seuss book, first of all, it's fictional. I mean, it's highly fictional. I mean, remember back when George Bush's vice president, Dan Quayle, made a comment about Murphy Brown, that show, and the mainstream media got all over Dan Quayle because Dan made a comment about how holding a character on a television show in high esteem as a single mom is not a good idea. And the mainstream media just got all over him saying, Mr. Vice President, Murphy Brown is a fictional person. It's not real. This is not, this is a fictional TV show. Well, guess what? Dr. Seuss is fictional, highly fictional. So, but if you've ever read a Dr. Seuss book, pretty much the names of places in the Dr. Seuss's books, you can't pronounce them. They're fictional. They're made up. And I hate to state the obvious, but the fact that it's hurtful because Asians in this book have slanted eyes, last time I checked, am I going to get in trouble saying this? I mean, don't most Asians have slanted eyes? I'm just asking. I mean, if that's hurtful, that's like saying most African Americans have darker pigmentation than Caucasians. And as far as the absence of women of color being in his books, I'm trying to remember from my childhood. Now, I could be wrong on this. But I do not remember a lot of white male characters, white male adult characters in Dr. Seuss's books. I mean, maybe I missed it. Generally speaking, there are always kids, and the mother was mentioned. Remember the Cat in the Hat? The mother was out, and the cat came in and caused all the havoc. And I can't remember. I mean, it's been a while since I read the Cat in the Hat to my kids. But if the mom makes an appearance, it's at the very end, but dad never does make an appearance. Now, I could be wrong on that, but I'm a little shocked that these books are hurtful because of people who aren't in them. And, here's another thing. Folks, things were a little different. Yeah, there's one of the characters up on our Facebook page from who is accused of being Orientalism. But granted, the guy was born more than a century ago. And frankly, things were different 100 years ago. I'm not saying they were all good. And I'm not saying that there were stereotypes that were perhaps wrongly portrayed, even if it was in an innocent way, as Dr. Seuss presented them. But how about this? How about instead of canceling them, how about going to the Dr. Seuss Enterprise and saying, consider updating these. And here's some areas that we'd like to see you change. I mean, in this day and age, you can find somebody to come in and do the drawings and imitate Dr. Seuss's drawings very well without just eliminating the guy. But the guy is a white male, and so he's guilty. And so the cancel culture says, you're out of here. Hey, we got to take a time out. When we come back, Cuomo can't get out of the news. And that ain't good for him. Stay with us. We'll have that when we get back.
Thank you for taking my call.
Next Monday.
Being a woman is not a disability.
It's International Women's Day.
We are out there.
Thing is,
I am a woman in the military, and I want everyone to know. I'm a woman.
it's like that around here.
Through and through. You just don't know how we feel. I'm like,
Every day,
I am a woman. I do know.
ladies,
Hello.
here's to you.
Why, thank you.
From News and Views with Tom and Betty on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Hey, I'm all about women. I'm married to one and got 3 daughters, 3 granddaughters. I'm all about it. Did you know today is a National Day of Unplugging? Which means, according to my producer, Clark, you're supposed to get off of all kinds of high-tech stuff, I guess. Take a look at your weather forecast. Increasing clouds tonight, low around 30. Tomorrow, listen, the next 3 to 4 days are all going to be about the same, and they're all going to be really nice. Mid-50s, lots of sunshine, but get ready for this. Monday, we're going to be in the upper 50s. Tuesday, mid-60s. Wednesday, high 60s. Thursday, low 70s. Spring is coming. Yes. And only 9 days until daylight savings time starts. This will age you, if you can remember this far back. 61 years ago, 1960, Elvis Presley was discharged from the Army after serving 2 years. But this one, a lot of us will remember. It's been 39 years ago today that John Belushi, the guy that was one of the originals on Saturday Night Live. First of all, it's hard to believe it's been 39 years ago that Saturday Night Live was on the air. He passed away. He's found dead in his room at the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Hollywood, overdosed. And 33 years old. Wow, what a waste of a life. I mean, the guy was funny. The guy was talented. Weather brought to you by our friends at University PC Care. They've been Eastern North Carolina's go-to IT experts for quite a while now. Unfortunately, most organizations simply react to IT issues after the damage is done. This is known as the break-fix cycle in the tech services industry. Here's a quick example of what I'm talking about. You show up to work, you find your computer's down, you submit a repair ticket, the tech shows up, tries to fix it from remote perhaps, and in the meantime, you're down, losing productivity, maybe losing files. University PC Care's Business Services Division has a much better way, a proactive solution called BizCare. BizCare tech support and cybersecurity plans are always on duty, staying ahead of potential problems, keeping you up and running with less downtime, and much safer from threats like ransomware. Want to know more? You ought to. Call William 394-8572 to schedule a free BizCare consultation, or go to universitypccare.com to learn more. All over Eastern North Carolina, they can take care of you. We're talking about Dr. Seuss before the break. Clark, my producer, just handed me this. If you want to get, now I actually think I have this book, and it's I'll beat this price by $1,000. A Cat in the Hat book by Dr. Seuss, $10,000. But hey, they're offering free shipping. So go on eBay and buy it now.
Why should they?
Wow. Wow. The poop gets deeper and deeper for Andrew Cuomo. By the way, it's so bad, and he looks so guilty, that CNN is actually starting to cover the story. A 25-year-old former aide to Governor Cuomo accused him of sexual harassment, called the Democrat a textbook abuser in an interview that airs today. He's a textbook abuser, said former aide Charlotte Bennett. Here she is from an interview with CBS News.
Looking back on all of this, how would you describe Governor Cuomo?
He is a textbook abuser. He lets his temper and his anger rule the office, but he was very sweet to me for a year in the hopes that maybe one day when he came on to me, I would think we were friends, or that it was appropriate, or that it was okay.
So by that, she's insinuating that he was coming on to her, but she actually off that clip, She went on to say, without explicitly saying it, he implied to me that I was old enough for him and that he was lonely. She said the governor, at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, felt emboldened as his national profile rose amid his televised outbreaks updates. Quote, I think he felt he was untouchable in a lot of ways. Bennett has alleged that the governor called her into his office on June 5th and told her he was lonely and looking for a girlfriend. In parts of the interview, she reiterated claims she made when she came forward with her accusation to the New York Times earlier in the week. She accused the governor of asking if her age difference mattered and said he told her he was fine with anyone over 22 years old. Bennett is 25. Isn't that big of the guy? How old is he? He's like 63. I mean, this woman is young enough easily to be the daughter. I mean, you could make the argument she's young enough to be the granddaughter. She went on to say, I thought he was trying to sleep with me. The governor is trying to sleep with me, she told O'Donnell, and I'm deeply uncomfortable. I have to get out of this room as soon as possible, she said. That's what she thought at the time. She also ripped the governor's attempt at a public apology made as reporters grilled him during his first news conference. It's not an apology, Bennett said. It's not an issue of my feelings. It's an issue of his actions. I mean, again, the apology, if I made anybody uncomfortable. In other words, if you're overly sensitive about the way I act as an Italian. Look, I kiss everybody. Look, I rub every woman's arm and back. And I come up and kiss women on the lips. So I'm Italian. So if you're offended, if you're overly sensitive, then I'm sorry. Yeah, that's those if apologies aren't apologies at all. But the second side of the poop story for Cuomo is this whole book that he wrote, quote, American Crisis, Leadership Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic. It has now come out this week by both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal that the Cuomo administration went behind the backs of people who were promoting his book. And basically, the administration influenced state health officials to fudge the nursing home data as the governor attempted to navigate dueling scandals. Well, he's attempting to navigate those now, but he went at the time, back in the summer when this book came out, he was telling state officials, health officials, fudge the death numbers from the coronavirus nursing home scandal. And now it's come out. And that is referencing, at the time, 9,000 deaths. Another interesting thing. Amazon is still listing, as of this week, as of Wednesday. Now, it might have changed since then because it's made some news. But as of Wednesday, with all that's going on, and by the way, CNN's finally covering this, but they didn't for the longest time. They finally started to cover this. But Amazon is still listing Cuomo's book, touting it a COVID response as an editor's pick amid nursing home scandal. It's an editor's pick by Amazon. Donald Trump Jr. called out Amazon. He's also called out Crown Publishing, who published the book. And he made note how conservatives like Josh Hawley, whose book deal with Simon & Schuster was canceled after he objected to the electoral votes for President Biden on January the 6th. So, I mean, stop and think about this. If you're a senator, and look, Democrats did this just 4 years ago. If you're a senator and you come up and object to the Electoral College vote count, Simon & Schuster is going to cancel your publication. But if you're a liberal and you go behind everyone's back and tell state health officials to fudge the numbers, don't count the 9,000 people that have died, and you're harassing women while you're trying to make a buck, and by the way, he went out and had to get special permission. Can I make money as the governor by publishing this book? He got permission to make money outside of his salary from this book deal. That's okay. That's no big deal. You're harassing women. You're lying about the numbers. You're promoting yourself as this potentate that's going to save America. I mean, it really is interesting how quickly the mighty have fallen. Again, I've said it before. Go back just 3 or 4 months ago. During the election, as Joe Biden is being elected president, well, as Joe Biden managed to wiggle out a pass into the White House, they were talking about the fact, well, if Joe is too old and feeble, which we now know he is, to serve, Andrew Cuomo, hey, he's our guy. He could be the next president. He could be the next leader of the Democrat Party. The ones that are all about being sensitive to women. Oh, he's sensitive, all right. It is interesting how the council culture, they attempt to do one thing and it backfires on them. We were talking during the break. So right now, the big deal is let's cancel Dr. Seuss. And what do? They put him on the bestseller list. Liberals want to go out and they want to ratchet up gun control. Make it harder to own a gun. Make it harder to get ammunition. What happens? Gun sales and ammunition sales explode through the roof. One of the things that you can remember as a conservative, as you get frustrated with the way the Democrats are going about what they're doing, one of the things that you can be pleased with, go back and remember Jimmy Carter. I think you can make an argument that if it wasn't for Jimmy Carter, we wouldn't have had Ronald Reagan. The things that the Democrats are doing go way overboard. This H.R. 1, which the liberals are now, they just think this is wonderful. This is the best thing since sliced bread. This will make voting just fair and wonderful, and it's just the most corrupt, unconstitutional piece of legislation you can imagine. Those kind of things, the $1.9 trillion, the COVID package, which only 91% of it goes for other things other than COVID. These kind of things, nominating this assistant to the DOJ who wants to defund the police and make illegal drugs legal, nominating Richard Levin to the assistant secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services. These kind of things that they're doing, they're constantly pulling, they're constantly trying to get squeeze their agenda by hook or crook. It's going to backfire. And I think the one thing that you can take comfort in, now they're doing everything they can to cheat. That's what H.R. 1 is all about. Just making sure that we basically go from a democratic republic to a pilot bureau with oligarchs. But the thing that's going to happen is the American people see this. My hunch is the more they do this come 2022, there's going to be such a change in the House and the Senate that the final 2 years, now granted, they can screw up a lot of things between now and November of 2022. But once we get there, I think, it's a long way off, but I think we'll see a major shift in the power in Washington, D.C. All that also to say, what else they have hanging over their heads, Just the News, John Solomon's publication. You know what? I've got to take a break. I'm just looking at the clock. Stay with us because I want to get to this article after we get back. It has to do with John Durham and his investigation into the whole FISA court corruption. I'd be a little nervous if I was in on that meeting that took place where our new president said, let's go after Papadopoulos and other aides of Donald Trump on the Logan Act. I'd be a little nervous. I'd be a little nervous if I was James Comey. We'll have that when we get back.
reopening of America.
We're taking another major step. We can do more together in phases.
Facing us back
Are we making progress? Absolutely.
into what we miss
Things get back to normal.
To open 100%.
and what we need.
To ensure vaccines get into arms.
Pandemic rescue package.
To reopen our schools.
Opening up our economy.
What you need to know through every phase.
Actually see other people.
To seeing my friends. Be more close to the people.
What you need to know through every phase. News and Views with Tom and Benny on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Tom Lamprecht with you. Benny will be back on Monday. John Solomon of Just the News. Interesting article concerning John Durham. Now, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago he has retired as Connecticut's chief federal prosecutor. And, we first saw that story, we said, uh-oh. But then the more we probed into it, we realized, okay, that was just his job as Connecticut's chief prosecutor. He's still on board and wrapping up his investigation into the whole Russian collusion narrative and what happened before the FISA court. All expectations were Durham would have wrapped up his probe, final indictments. That would have happened last fall. Now, we did have a plea deal with the former FBI lawyer, Kevin Kleinsmith. He admitted he falsified documents. On Tuesday, FBI Director Chris Wray said that because we are cooperating fully with Mr. Durham's investigation at his request, we have slowed that process down to allow his criminal investigation to proceed. Criminal investigation to proceed. He went on before the Senate Judiciary Committee saying, so at the moment, that process is still underway in order to make sure we are being appropriately sensitive to the criminal investigation. This does not sound like something that, it's no big deal. Ray's comments signaling additional crimes are being investigated are consistent with what William Barr said late last year when he upgraded Durham from a U.S. attorney to a special counsel and expanded his investigative staff. Now, a lot of people were speculating that, okay, why didn't they come out with anything last fall? And they thought, well, is this to help Biden, to hurt Donald Trump? In hindsight, I don't know for sure, but in hindsight, I would say, no, he just wasn't done. And from what I have read about John Durham, it doesn't sound like he's a politico, that he's there to do his job. The sources said one former senior FBI official has provided invaluable cooperation and context to what decisions FBI leadership and field agents were making in the probe on such consequential matters as to what to tell Congress, the courts, and the Justice Department lawyers about the flaws, political origins, and falsehoods of the Russian collusion narrative. Most of the evidence that supports these concerns are now public domain. There is some documentation that has come out that reveals now that, one, the FBI and President Obama were warned in the summer of 2016, well before the first FISA warrant was issued, that Hillary Clinton might be concocting a bogus Russian collusion scandal to vilify Trump and distract from her own email scandal. Two, the FBI was warned repeatedly that informal Trump campaign foreign advisor Carter Page had been a longtime CIA asset who assisted the U.S. on Russian matters. Now, remember, that's what Kleinsmith got in trouble for, is he changed that narrative. He changed that email to say, no, he wasn't. Three, both Page and George Papadopoulos have been recorded by an FBI informant wearing a wire denying all the key allegations against them. Four, a spreadsheet analyzing Christopher Steele's dossier found most of his collusion allegations had been debunked, could not be corroborated, were found to be an internet rumor, and were disavowed by his primary subsource. Five, Steele had been paid by the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, and Clinton for his Russian collusion work, and harbored a desire to defeat Trump and Clinton because he believed the Republican nominee would be bad for his home country of Great Britain. Six, FBI had been repeatedly warned that Steele was susceptible to Russian disinformation, that his primary subsource was assessed to be tied to Russian intelligence, and some of the evidence in his dossier had been determined to be Russian disinformation. And finally, the lead FBI investigation agent, then prospective National Security Team advisor Michael Flynn, had reported to his bosses in January 2017 that months of investigation had found no derogatory evidence that Flynn was aiding Russia, and urged closing down the investigation, but he was overruled by superiors. I would say there's a lot of criminal activity going on amongst those bullet points. We'll see where it goes. John Durham's report should be out within the next 60 days. We got to take another time out. We'll be right back.
This is your Drive at 5 and ENC with Tom Lamprecht. Welcome back to News and Views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Fox News is reporting a Baltimore high school student failed all but 3 classes over 4 years. Okay, failed all but 3 classes over 4 years and almost graduated in the top half of his class with a 0.13 GPA. Tiffany France, the mother of the failing student, thought her son would be receiving his diploma from Augusta Fells Savage Institute of Visual Arts in June. However, she was surprised to discover that he is being sent back to the 9th grade to start all over again. France expressed frustration with the school, asking why her son would have to complete 3 more years of high school after the school failed him. Francis, actually, it'd be 4 years if you go in. Apparently, math wasn't her strong suit. Francis' son failed 22 classes and was late on 272 days over his first 3 years of high school.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Now, think about this. In North Carolina, and I'm sure Maryland is somewhere in the same category, I think in North Carolina it's about 185 days of school that's required. Now, granted, I mean, you could be sick for a couple of those days, obviously, but 185 days of school. Assuming that's the same in Maryland, this means this young man was late or absent 50% of the time. According to this report, only one teacher requested a parent-teacher conference, but France said that didn't happen. Despite this, her son still ranked 62nd out of 120 students. 62nd out of 120 students. And he only passed 3 classes in 4 years. The school failed at their job. They failed. That's the problem here. They failed. He didn't deserve that, she said. This is the mother. And Miss France, okay, I'd have to say they're not the only ones who failed. Is it their responsibility to go and fetch your son every day to make sure he shows up on time or shows up at all? Now, granted, I will agree with you that the school needs to be, things need to tighten up a little bit. I mean, look, how do you get through 4 years of school, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades, only pass 3 classes, and the mother says she doesn't know about it? Now, the school, in their defense, the school sent a 2-page statement to the Fox station in Baltimore saying students had received letters in the mail informing them of their academic status over the summer, and the parents receive automated voice messages when students miss class. The district also said it conducts home visits to check in on the students. France said no one checked on her son. Wow. And I mean, it's bad enough that this one individual is in this category. This one male student is in this category. But he was 2 slots from being in the top half of his class. So what about those other 58 students? How many classes did they pass? Did they pass any? Well, moms and dads, take care of your kids. Pay attention to what's going on in their schools. Hey, we got to run. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye, everybody.